Somewhere in southeastern Tibet, a river drops 2,000 meters in less than 50 kilometers, and China just started building inside it. The Medog hydropower station, officially launched in July 2025, is designed to become the most powerful power generation facility ever constructed. 60 gigawatts of installed capacity, 300 billion kilowatt hours of electricity per year, a price tag north of $137 billion. And it sits in the deepest canyon on Earth, in one of the most earthquake-prone regions on the planet. This isn't just a power plant. It's the most expensive roll of the dice in engineering history. To appreciate how we got here, you need to zoom out. In 2025, China invested nearly $500 billion in energy infrastructure, a single year spend that broke every record in the country's history. That figure, announced by the National Energy Administration in early 2026, represented an 11% jump from the year before, and marked the first time China's annual energy investment crossed that threshold. By the end of 2025, total installed power generation capacity across the country had reached 3.89 terawatts. For context, that's more than the United States, the European Union, and India combined. Solar capacity alone now exceeds the entire power grid of most advanced economies. But capacity isn't the same as reliability. Power plant utilization actually fell in 2025, down over 300 hours compared to the previous year. The grid is growing faster than demand can keep up. Wind and solar are surging, but they're intermittent. Coal still provides the backbone. And China needs something enormous, something constant, to anchor the system. That something is Medog. To understand why engineers chose this exact spot, you have to picture one of the most violent stretches of river on Earth. The Yarlung Tsangpo flows eastward across the Tibetan plateau for hundreds of kilometers, then makes a sudden, dramatic U-turn around a peak called Namcha Barwa, a mountain so steep and jagged that its Tibetan name translates roughly to "sky iron aflame." At the point of that turn, the river plunges through a canyon deeper than anything in the Americas, 3 times deeper than the Grand Canyon. Over a 50-kilometer stretch, the elevation drops nearly 2,000 meters. The energy locked in that fall is staggering. Engineers estimate nearly 70 million kilowatts of technically exploitable hydropower, making it one of the most energy-dense sites on the planet. China has been quietly studying this location for decades. But until recently, there wasn't even a reliable road into Medog County. The last county in all of China to be connected by highway only got a permanent road link in 2022. Building the world's largest power station in one of the most inaccessible places on Earth is not just an engineering challenge. It's a logistical puzzle with no modern precedent. The construction plan calls for something that sounds almost fictional. 4 tunnels, each 20 kilometers long, bored straight through Namcha Barwa Mountain. The concept is a run-of-the-river design. Water gets diverted into these massive tunnels at a high elevation, plummets through them gaining tremendous velocity, spins turbines at the bottom of the canyon, and returns to the river before it crosses into India. 5 Cascade hydropower stations will be built along this route, sharing the 60 gigawatt total. The engineering demands are extraordinary. Workers are operating at altitudes above 3,000 meters, in terrain prone to landslides, avalanches, and extreme weather shifts. Temperatures can swing wildly. The rock itself is unpredictable, fractured and folded by millions of years of tectonic collision between the Indian and Eurasian plates. Engineers from the Power Construction Corporation of China, the state-owned firm leading the project, have developed reinforced concrete linings and high-capacity drainage systems specifically for these tunnels. But the real question isn't whether they can drill through the mountain. It's whether the mountain will stay still long enough to let them finish. In 1950, a magnitude 8.6 earthquake tore through this exact region, one of the most powerful ever recorded on land. It killed thousands, triggered massive landslides, and reshaped the river's course. Since the early 20th century, over 800 seismic events of magnitude 3.0 or higher have been recorded in and around the Yarlung Tsangpo Basin. The site sits directly on the Indo-Tsangpo Suture Zone, the collision boundary where the Indian subcontinent is still actively pushing into the Eurasian plate. This is not a dormant fault. This is one of the most geologically volatile zones on the planet. Engineers say the tunnels are designed to withstand earthquakes up to magnitude 8.5, but that margin is razor thin when the historical record shows an 8.6 already happened here. In January 2025, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake struck southern Tibet, killing over 100 people. Inspections afterward revealed cracks in 5 of 14 hydropower dams across the region, and 3 had to be drained entirely. The question hanging over Medog isn't whether there will be another major earthquake. It's when and whether the tunnels and stations can survive it. The Three Gorges Dam took 17 years, displaced 1.4 million people, and cost 250 billion yuan, and Medog is designed to triple its output. Where Three Gorges generates roughly 100 terawatt-hours per year, Medog aims for 300. Where the Three Gorges Dam spans the relatively stable geology of the Yangtze, Medog sits in the most seismically active mountain range on Earth. The investment is proportional to the ambition. Over 1.2 trillion yuan, roughly 5 times what Three Gorges cost, making Medog one of the most expensive infrastructure projects in human history. China's Premier Li Qiang called it the project of the century at the groundbreaking ceremony. A dedicated state-owned enterprise, China Yajiang Group, was created specifically to manage construction and operations. Nothing about this project is incremental. It's a bet that China's engineers can achieve something no country has ever attempted in a location that seems designed to resist human intervention. Generating 60 gigawatts of power in the Himalayas means nothing if you can't move it 3,000 kilometers east. China's solution is the most advanced long-distance power transmission network on Earth. Ultra-high voltage direct current lines, operating at 800,000 volts and above, are the backbone. In September 2025, construction began on a new UHVDC line stretching 2,181 kilometers from southeastern Tibet to the Guangdong-Hong Kong-Macau Greater Bay Area, designed to deliver over 43 billion kilowatt-hours of clean energy annually. The State Grid Corporation has already built and operates 42 UHV projects across the country, with cross-regional transmission capacity exceeding 370 million kilowatts. The Tibet to Guangdong line alone will pass through permafrost zones, high-altitude mountain passes, and 4 different provinces. Engineers describe it as a heavenly route for green power. When Medog reaches full operation, these transmission corridors will need to expand further, and the engineering challenges of moving power at this scale across this terrain rival the dam construction itself. The Yarlung Tsangpo doesn't stop at the Chinese border. It flows south into India, where it becomes the Siang and then the Brahmaputra, one of Asia's most vital waterways. It continues into Bangladesh as the Jamuna. Along this journey, the river sustains roughly 130 million people across agriculture, fisheries, and daily water needs. India and Bangladesh have both raised concerns about what a 60-gigawatt hydropower complex could mean for downstream flows. India has pointed to risks of reduced dry season flows, altered sediment patterns, and potential flash flooding during sudden water releases. The Brahmaputra supports over 200 fish species and 2 million fishermen. Bangladesh depends on it for more than half of its national irrigation. Chinese officials describe Medog as a run-of-the-river system that won't significantly cut transboundary flows. But transparency has been limited. There is no comprehensive water-sharing treaty between China and either downstream nation. India has accelerated its own hydropower plans in Arunachal Pradesh partly as a strategic counterweight. The engineering story of Medog cannot be separated from the geopolitical reality. Whoever controls the upper river controls the conversation. As of early 2026, the Chinese government has not released a comprehensive environmental impact assessment for the project. The Yarlung Tsangpo Grand Canyon region is classified as a national nature reserve and ranks among China's most important biodiversity hotspots. The unique convergence of extreme elevation changes and monsoon air from the south has created ecosystems ranging from tropical rainforest to alpine meadow within a few dozen kilometers. Rare species including the snow leopard inhabit the area. Within China's own scientific community, researchers have expressed concerns, carefully given the political sensitivities, about seismic instability, permafrost disruption from tunnel drilling, and the potential for mass wasting events. Tibet is warming nearly twice as fast as the global average. Permafrost is collapsing, glaciers are retreating, and the Aimontsai landscape itself is in a state of climate-driven transformation. Building the largest hydropower station in history in the middle of this process is, depending on who you ask, either a necessary step toward clean energy or a high-risk intervention into a system that's already being pushed to its limits. By 2033, if everything goes to plan, the Medog hydropower station will power roughly 300 million people with clean energy. It will produce electricity equivalent to the entire annual consumption of the United Kingdom. It will anchor China's grid as the country races toward carbon neutrality by 2060, providing the firm baseload capacity that solar and wind alone cannot deliver. And it will do all of this from the bottom of the deepest canyon on Earth, through tunnels drilled into a mountain that sits on a tectonic collision zone, on a river shared by 3 nations with no binding agreement on how to share it. The engineering is breathtaking. The risks are enormous. The consequences, whether it succeeds or fails, will be felt far beyond China's borders, far beyond the energy sector, and far beyond 2033. Sometimes the most ambitious projects in human history don't just generate power. They reveal exactly how much a nation is willing to wager on its own capability. What happens in this canyon over the next 7 years could define the future of energy infrastructure for generations. And right now, the world is watching to see whether the gamble pays off.